Hello, everyone. I'm Nitin Vashne, Director Product Management at Optum Global Solutions. With me, we have Atibi Mehra as well. Atibi, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi, hello everyone. Good evening. So I'll start with a quick introduction. So I'm part of the product team at Optum, part of United Health Group, and at Optum we have, a strong product team building products and platforms across various facets of the U.S. healthcare ecosystem. And I lead Optum Digital, which is the digital arm of Optum. That basically focuses on building all the consumer facing digital products for United Health Group. And my background spans in product management for over 15 years, specifically in creating consumer facing digital experiences with companies such as Vodafone, Yahoo, and Group M, and some healthcare startups. So I'm really happy to be here and as to really interact with you all. I think this is a forum for aspiring product managers and would be great to share my learnings with you in this journey and would really urge you all to ask questions throughout this session. Curiosity is one of the key skill sets of product managers. So look forward to interacting with the audience here. Over to you, Nitin.
Wonderful. Thanks, Atibi. Hi, everyone. I'm Director Product Management at Optum Global Solutions, and I lead various segments over here uh, to build, products and platforms for various sub-segments of U.S. healthcare industry. Throughout more than 16 years of product management experience throughout in health tech space, have served the provider side of the house, hospitals and non-hospital provider setups and their needs, and the payer side, cutting across the claims management, claims editing, fraud, waste, and abuse, and other segments. And it has been a wonderful journey. And obviously, the industry and the product management as a discipline has evolved a lot since I started playing this role, and happy to share all that learning and some of the suggestions from our side. And as Ativi said, if there are questions, please do post, and we will take it at the end of the session as we move there. Atibi,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about the organization?
Yes, yes. So before we start, we'll just give a quick introduction to the organization that we belong to. So Optum is part of United Health Group, which is ranked seventh as in the Fortune 500 list, a revenue of $257 billion in 2020, and we have a lofty mission, which is primarily helping people live healthier lives and making the healthcare system work better. And I'm sure all of us here agree that during the pandemic, if there's one thing that has been taught to us is the importance of healthcare in our lives, and whether it's prevention and all forms, right? And this is a very lofty mission that we have ahead of us. So United Health Group is primarily the health benefit side of the business, which means the insurance side of business, and Optum is the health services side of business. um, at Optum, we leverage data and analytics, clinical expertise, and embedded technology, and drive three key business units, which is Optum Insights, Optum Health, and Optum RX. We have around 25,000 professionals across four locations in India. Okay, so this is a really key slide, and this primarily talks about the crux of product thinking, right? Every decision that you as product managers would need to go through is this framework, and many of you all might have seen this framework, before, which resides, between desirability, feasibility, viability, and actually the crux of product of having a product mindset is to really find a value proposition which is a sweet spot between these three key pillars. So let's talk about what is desirability, right? And I think the reason why I'm saying this is that even if you are not product managers, but think all your decisions that you would be taking as a product person needs to go through to these three lenses. So what is desirable? So desirable is basically is this solution even needed by the consumer? um, how is the consumer really solving for this need at this point, and what really is the consumer pain point that you're solving for? You know, so really deep diving into this now, I can tell you in terms of healthcare, right? We saw a huge change in the way consumers wanted to consume or experience healthcare. And for example, virtual care, in 2019, before the pandemic, it was virtual care was 11%. Post that, post COVID, it is now sitting at 76%. So we knew that virtual care, telehealth was really growing areas. So imagine situations where your telehealth staff is actually, you have a patient who's actually delivering chemotherapy, for example, and this is not something which is fictional, it's happening right now. And there's a nurse who's actually overseeing that chemotherapy of the patient at home and monitoring some of the side effects, right? So these are some of the new needs of the consumers, right? Which is remote patient monitoring also. So remote patient monitoring basically helps patients, helps us actually monitor patients and monitor symptoms via self-serve tools, right? And this really saw a huge growth. As a product person, these are some of the needs that you need to really understand, as you have to preempt and these needs, and preempting these needs and creating a right solution to solve for this. And then you come to viability. Like, viability is really important in terms of, will this really help the business? Like, many products fail the viability test. The question is, yes, the consumer requires it, the desirability is there, but will he pay for it? How much will he pay for it? Will this be a sustainable solution in the long run? How are you going to make money out of this? How are you going to cut costs? What's in it for the business? How can I really justify the investments? Look at the products that you're consuming right now. Look at Spotify. Look at Netflix, right? The Netflix subscription is well talked about, right? Why have they come up with that figure, the subscription figure? Look at Amazon Prime. All of these have gone through a lot of iterations and understanding what is the viability of this solution, and how much are consumers willing to really pay for it. And feasibility. Now, feasibility is what is really required for you to make this product happen. What do you need? What kind of technology do you need? What kind of people? What kind of system workflows? Everything that enables a desired experience. So I can tell you, for example, in the areas that I work in, right? We tied up with, we knew virtual care was really important. So we basically tied up with Amwell, which is one of the biggest telehealth providers in United States. And we started integrated Amwell into our product offerings. United Health Group also acquired a company called Vivify Health in October 2019, which is into the remote patient monitoring space. So linking from, the consumer desires this, what can we do from a company? We acquired Vivify Health. And then your role as a product manager would be, how do you really deploy the Vivify Health applications within your business units to, ensure that, we are, giving solutions that that the member really wants. And if the answer to any of these three, desirable, feasibility, viability, is no, you really need to rethink your decision and go back to the drawing board and see whether, from this lens, and actually make, decisions again, to make sure that, all these three parameters are actually, qualifying. Um, we'll move to
Right.
the next slide. Nitin, over to you. Yeah.
Right. So I know, I just on this slide, Atibi, I know all three are important, as you said, right? But let's say if we have to pick one, and if you're allowed to pick, okay, tell me which one is the most important one, right? My pick will be viability, because when I see a lot of products and companies failing in the market, I see that they have done good research on desirability. They are also able to get a lot of technical prowess through the talent, but somehow they are not able to think deeper about the sustainable viability. Any thoughts on that front,
Yeah.
Atibi?
So I think viability definitely is definitely is important, and I think it's always an iterative process, right?
Right.
It's more about experimentation, right? And so there's always an as a product person, I think you need to be sure that there is no correct answer. So you will think that the solution is viable and you have an entire business model that will support it, but it needs to be one that you can quickly move, experiment, try another one. So viability is important, is definitely, I think, is ranks really high. I think desirability is also very important, and the reason why I think so is I think I have made failures in the past where I have clearly identified that this is definitely a gap, right, that needs to be solved and the consumer needs this. And very often the solution that we are providing to the consumer is saying that, this is your need, this is your solution, are you okay with it? And very often, the way we are providing the solution is wrong. So identifying the need and also the way that the need needs to be solved is a very, very tricky uh, experience, at least from my end. Yeah.
Well said, Dativi. Yeah. So just to take the discussion forward, right? I know that there are a lot of folks in this call who are looking for a larger picture of product management discipline, right? A larger picture on product management competency. So what I can talk about here, and Atibi, you can pitch in, is that a framework, right, which covers the competencies and capabilities of product management. It's a very, very wide landscape out there, and it totally depends on the ecosystem or the company or the setup. Whether you require a holistic product management landscape covering organization. For example, if it is a very, very early startup, obviously you might not be able to get a proper strategic product management focusing only on strategic aspects of the products or the business, and then a separate technical product management and separate product marketing organization. But as the organizations grow, and especially for the corporates and large product organizations, it's very important to have very high focus on all three aspects of product management, that is strategic product management, technical product management, and product marketing management as well. From And I will just very quickly try to cover all of these. From strategic product management, there are three areas where these competencies are required. One is in the product discovery area, which Ativi was talking about, right? Like, are we really identifying the right problems to solve? And then business strategy, how do you really make a feasible business plan, and how do you kind of plan the go to market? Under product discovery, the first thing which always, even if you look at some of the other frameworks, like Pragmatic Institute framework or other frameworks also, the most important aspect of product management competency is market problems. What are the sub problems? What are the root causes of the problem? Why is it not being solved so far? And what is the current way of kind of doing that particular work, which is a problem, right? And then customer need analysis, based on that, trying to go deeper into it, trying to understand the empathy mapping, customer journey mapping, try to deeply understand your customer in terms of their goals, their success factors, and whatnot. And once you have understood that, what is competition doing? What are our direct competitors doing? What are our indirect competitors doing? And not just in terms of features and functionalities, but also in terms of their strategy, product, finance, operations, technology, right? Holistically, do you understand the market? And then Dan Olson spoke in his book also, on the video, and you can refer to that, is about the product market fit. It's a very important aspect which talks about degree to which your product is satisfying the market demand. Like, is there a overlap, is there a good fit there, right? And I highly advise everyone to read and hear Dan Olson on this particular aspect. Opportunity analysis, right? What kind of opportunities are these? Just like how sales organizations do their opportunity analysis, product managers need to deeply understand the realities of the market, the market size and segments and things of those nature. And then business strategy, where you create a business plan in terms of financial projections, and and trying to understand what kind of investments are required. This is one of those aspects where strategic product managers if there is a new idea, if there is a new business, or if there is a new initiative, this is something which takes good amount of their time. uh, and then the CBA, cost benefit analysis. Do you understand the costs associated with that in terms of labor and infrastructure costs, or benefits in terms of hard or soft benefits and whatnot? Is there good alignment on product vision and synergies? Do we know the north star of the product which we are trying to build? And are we building the product in the right way, keeping product mindset guidelines in mind, right? um, Strategic alliance in terms of, you know if we have thought about an opportunity, do we really have to build it? Is there another way of buying or partnering or something else? Because product ecosystem should not get into a mindset where everything has to be built. Pricing and profitability. Some of the business models are very critically dependent on the pricing strategy, and so does product manager understand that aspect of pricing strategy, the profitability, constraints and whatnot? Um, and then in terms of GTM preparations, is does the product manager understand the target segmentation very well? Do we have a good understanding of market sizing? What is the opportunity out there? Do we know the personas? Do we know buyer deeply, and do we know the users, different kinds of users, right? Do we understand their challenges, their motivation, their frustrations, and that entire persona analysis? Again, all of these, every item listed over here is a subject in itself. Believe me, it takes many days, sometimes many months to really understand these deeply. And I'm just touching upon these really wide topics. And then understand the value proposition, right? How are we different? When if you have to do an elevator pitch on your business case, what is that differentiation from the market or the competition you are going to highlight? And then based on that, how do you do the positioning? How do you work with your marketing team to really communicate the right value proposition to the market? And then accordingly, what is your distribution strategy? Are you going to distribute through SaaS model? Are you going to distribute through some other model? Are you, is that something is very, very important from product management perspective? If you are market facing, or as we say, outside the building, product management competencies which will be required. And then you go to the technical product management aspect of it, where you go deeply and kind of work with your engineering teams, your UX teams, day in day out, to build what has been decided. For example, first thing first is planning, defining that product roadmap, which will be more like a timeline based plan of how would you execute that product strategy which has been defined by the strategic leaders. The capability matrix, where you really understand each capability of your key competitors, so that you can really plan how to contain that particular competitor to achieve the objectives of your product strategy. Resource planning, again, one of the most important aspect of product management is that product management as a discipline is at the center of many other functions. And lot of functions are dependent on product management or product managers or product leaders to make some of these decisions associated with the product strategy, right? So for example, um, if there are existing products, APIs, talent, patents, services in your own organization or with your partner organizations, are we making the most optimized decision with respect to how to go forward with it? And h- are you taking those decisions in collaboration with all the functions, right? So that's very key to this particular role. Resource planning, requirement analysis and sprint planning is key to the technical product management execution side of the house, where you work with your engineer, build your backlog, groom your backlog, and kind of build the products or a platform as per the defined PI or a sprint backlog. And then execution in terms of developing, working shoulder to shoulder with your engineers and architects and your UX folks, and your QA folks, right? And then in terms of release, the planning for the release is very, very critical, right? So how do you plan that iterative mode of development, which is key to product mindset, by the way? uh, how do you go from a proof of concept of proving that this product can be built to MVP, to proving that it is a feasible option, or a viable option, and then kind of really taking in phase wise approach to the market iteratively. What is that plan, right? And then how do you plan the launch? How do you prepare your ecosystem for your product launch, and define some of the launch effectiveness measures through which you are going to really measure your launch. And then, last but not the least, on the technical product management side is the incident management and the post release support. Many a times it is assumed that product management is about defining what need to be built, or road mapping and whatnot. But also whatever has been built, it is also a responsibility of a product manager to ensure that it remains in the most sought after, desired state for the users. For example, if there are defects in the existing version out there, product manager cannot really work on the futuristic aspects of the product when their current version is not working well. So all of that is very important for technical product management. And for product marketing management roles, very close collaboration with marketing team in terms of creating the inbound and outbound marketing strategies, awareness strategies with respect to your brand as well as with respect to your product, generation of leads for your sales organization. How do you kind of do that in close collaboration with marketing and sales? How do you enable them really? How do you kind of define the advocacy channels? How do you promote your promoters? That all that discussion need to happen very closely with product managers for marketing as well as sales teams. Events, how do you plan your events in terms of customer events, customer summits where you can meet your customers, or launch of your products and things of those nature. Collaterals, if you leave it to just marketing team, there might be gaps, there might be leakages of information which might not be going to the right channel, or to the desired customer segments. So you'll have to be on top of it to understand, are we creating the right collaterals for our sales organization, for our channel organization, for our training organization, and ensuring the right information and knowledge is being disbursed to really do justice to the product in the system. So with that, I will hand it over to Ativi to talk more about key skills, practices, and behaviors for these three disciplines.
Yes. I think it's all, I think Nitin covered the aspects of product management. I think it was quite exhaustive, but um, the thing is, towards the end of the presentation, we'll share with you some of the, some of the people that you can follow, books, etc. But I think what's really really critical in this role, which you might not see across other roles, is some of your key skill sets as an individual, behavioral skill sets, practices. And I think I can't resonate with this at this more than this time, because right now our organization is going through an entire exercise of ratings, calibrations, and believe me, each and every product person in my team is actually evaluated on these behaviors. So don't think these are a set of behaviors which are just there for the slide. Every product person needs to aspire at least to think in this direction. And I would urge you all, as I talk about these areas, maybe try and see how you can practice this in your day-to-day life, and maybe I can give you some examples. So the first thing is in terms of for strategic product management, obviously goes without saying, you need to be a strategic thinking. Now what does this really mean? That you need to be in some form a system thinker. How do you see the big picture? How does the various systems in your organization react, and how do you basically use the right systems to build for your platform? What are the levers that you can use in your system? And this isn't easy, when you're trying to think big, think from an organization perspective, especially for large companies such as Optum. It comes with deep understanding and knowledge of your systems, of your processes, to really build to scale, right? And build to scale, I mean that if you are solving a problem, can that same solution be used across your organization to actually solve other problems? Can you, so those are some of the questions that would come, to you. Growth mindset, right? Growth mindset. Product management is one function which, there will always be ambiguity. When anyone from my team comes to me and says that, I don't understand what needs to be done, I don't have a clarity. That's a red flag, because as a product manager, you need to be, you need to stay curious. You need to, understand that there will be many failures, and but the failure will pave way to success, right? Always important to have a growth mindset, which means stay curious, expect success, and very often, and this is very important as individuals also, but more so in this field, right? To some extent, it's very important to know that if there's a failure, there is something, that there's something to learn and move ahead. So be curious, be playful, be open minded. I think those are some of the skill sets definitely that I hire, from in terms of the management task and folks. And I think a lot of companies pay a lot of heed to that. Critical thinking, again, very very important. Critical thinking primarily means that, creating an evidence-based consensus to have a judgment, right? Critical thinking is more than just making a judgment, right? Some judgments and some intuitive calls are made, but finding out, what is the most probable, correct answer from multiple correct answers, for example, right? Analyzing, relevant information with multiple methods, whether it's user analytics, consumer feedback. We do that all the time. We work on several mobile products, and we really, analyze the consumer data, feedback, analytics, what's really, coming from all sources, to really, integrate and synthesize that information in unique ways to actually bring a new perspective. So really practice this. Look at this even in your current problems that you're trying to solve for, or you come across. And even I saw a question on engineering talent moving to product management. Critical thinking is very important, right? Are we building the right product, or are we building the product the right way? Two very different things. So I think, you need to think in that direction. um, and being consumer centric. Now, consumer centric obviously is we spoke about it, right? The entire customer discovery, being very close to the pulse of the consumer. Very often, for example, in our line of work, we may not be very close to our members who are in US, but we do have a lot of other avenues to gather that data, whether it is through analytics, with us through eye perception feedback, etc. So we have all that data, and then we have business, which is very close to the consumer. So we have regular interactions with them. Taking initiative and measured risks, very very important. Uh, you know, uh, High level of accountability is one of the key elements as a product manager, because you have you don't have teams reporting into you. You have an area where you have to influence a lot of people. However, you do not those people are not reporting into you. So taking initiatives, facing newer risks and challenges is something that you ideally need to thrive on. I remember I seeing some interview of a very senior person in Google on how what traits does he look for a product person. And he said that, I really look in my team for people from very varied backgrounds. He literally said, I also hire people who've worked in a restaurant serving tables, because that's high. That's complex. There's always chaos. There's not one day which is same. And the person is handling multiple tables at one time, right? So I mean, that's I thought that was very interesting, because we are doing this all the time. Every day is different, and we are literally in in calls, trying to firefight situations. um, Being politically savvy and agile is very important, especially in large organizations. And why is this important is, to um, uh, uh, you know you need to understand stakeholders, understand leaders, and who are going to be, who influence your decisions, right? So you should be able to navigate the organization. And very important, which is, again, if you're planning to move into product management, really understanding your political nature of the organization, so that your product does not display any hurdle for releases, for any new development, etc. So very important. Business focus. Now, you need to be business focused, which means understanding some of the macro trends, market trends. What is competition doing? How is the market moving? We internally have sessions within our team where the team comes back, every month, and just talks about what's really happening in the ecosystem and how consumer trends are changing. Every company has a different approach to product management. So Amazon, I don't know whether you must many have read about this, but Amazon approach to product development is basically called working backwards. What working backward means, as a product manager, you need to, rather than saying that this is the need of the consumer, this is the idea, this is the feature, and start working on the feature development, the first step of product development is to actually write a internal press release announcing the launch of the product. So as a product person, you need to create a press release which may be 1 year, 2 years out, trying to say that why will the consumer consume the product, right? What is the solution that it's solving? What is what is so great in the new product that will really blow away all the current existing products that are there? So you're literally imagining a state 2 years hence, and then you're working backwards to build the product. So you can only do that if you're very business focused, right? And you really understand the pulse of the of the market. um, Ability to say no, very controversial, but I think this is, if you ask me, this is one of the most key traits of a product manager. And why is that important is that, very often you will have multiple channels where you will get requirements, whether it's from business will say, I have this client coming in, I need this feature rolled out, it's going to cost me x million dollars if you do not do it. You'll have an important stakeholder giving the feedback. You'll have multiple inputs, in terms of what really should your product be doing. And at that point of time, you as a product manager need to make very conscious decisions, not based on your judgment, but based on, again, critical evaluation, right? What is the impact of what I'm trying to build? Is this something that can actually, wait for 6 months and solve a larger problem? Ability to say no. Many companies have said that. For example, I heard Nitin saying that, that Instagram, decided not to really build for the iPad, right? That's a conscious call, that we decide not to invest our energies on building an iPad. I personally took that call when I was building an application, and we said that, let's, do we really need a native app, or do we need a hybrid app? Do we need to build, a native app across two, code bases, or do we need to, the solution does not require us to actually use native capabilities, right? So those are very key decisions. Very often product managers are not liked because of their ability to say no, but believe me, at the end you will always be respected for your clear judgment and thinking, for having a clear reason for saying no. um, so that's on the strategic product management. And TPM's ability to influence others. I'll just say the important, really all are important, but resilience and resourcefulness. Again, this is so important. There are so many failures in product management. Very often the buck stops at you. You are the conduit between business with technical, UX, etc. We'll cover that. But the ability to emotionally deal with it, move on, and go to the next thing, I think that's really critical. And so Using your time effectively, I think that's also very, very critical. It comes from the key skill set on prioritization, right? As a product manager, you need to prioritize what needs to be done and when that needs to be done, and that is also with your time. Your time is the most precious asset. So using time effectively. I know product managers who'd be very clear that scrum meetings need to be for X amount of time, and if it's not followed by the scrum master, they'll be they'll be very vocal about it, right? So using your time effectively. Also, I see a lot of product managers, getting into the daily tasks, operational work throughout the day, and not spending, not dedicating some time of your day in really understanding market trends, where how your product is performing. So I would really suggest dedicate half an hour, 1 hour a day on understanding where your product is right now, how you should be analyzing, what is the metric saying, what you need to build through that, and spending some time on future trends, right? What's really happening in the market. So that's some time. That's how in your managing time effectively, you need some time to that. um, Innovation driven, definitely, we lay a lot of stress even in in Optim. There are lots of avenues, and that comes from a mindset of really thinking differently. How can I solve this problem in a better way? And this is intrinsic to the work that is being done. Even if it's a feature, right? If a business person says, I want XYZ to be released on on my app, what is the best way to do it, is a question that you need to go back, dig in, use analytics to really, or use whatever data sources to say that, is this even needed, right? And question that. Conflict, and I think conflict resolution is again a very important, very, we are very often faced with situations where you are the lone man standing, right? And how do you really amicably solve these problems, and make sure that these, you solve it for the long term, right? Look at situations where the technical team is giving you a solution, and you feel that that might not, and you have a point of view on that solution, or there is always a, a business teams coming to you and saying, why is my requirement not prioritized? There will always be sources of conflicts, and that's why you need to be at a stage where you amicably solve this. um, I think all the other points, I think product marketing, collaboration, lead change, etc., all these are also very critical. But in the interest of time, I will, hand it over to Nitin. Okay. So you want to talk about this, Nitin?
Sure, Ratibia. So I think, basically, the way this is, kind of displayed over here, is that, what are the different functions in an organization, in a typical organization, with which product management, personnel, whether on the strategic front or technical or the product marketing front, need to really interface to make really the key decisions for the product or the platform which we are building. Now, what we have done is we have kind of tried to segregate it, but these are not the hard right compartments. We are not saying that, look, a strategic product management cannot talk to UX, or a technical product management cannot talk to, the finance or any of the other aspects. So we can, but overall, these are the key touch points, the key interface areas for the product management, roles. For example, strategic product management, it is very critical that the strategic leaders have a direct pulse of customers. They understand their needs and whatnot, as we discussed, but they also need to have a good understanding on the expectations of executives. And that will be key to understand how feasible are the plans or the roadmaps which they can plan. On the finance front, how can get the right investments required. Sales front, how can they define the distribution strategy and whatnot. On the legal front, there are many functionalities, many product areas where the legal team will have a very critical say. And on the technical product management front, the apart from the customer touch points, shoulder to shoulder working with engineers, UX support, R&D is very critical. And on the product marketing front, legal, communications, media, and marketing are the very key functions where you will devote a lot of time in kind of working with them, discussing with them various aspects of the products. So, and I'll kind of just take a minute. I'll not delve into deeper because of the lack of time at this point. But many times people talk about, how can I prepare, especially the folks who are either aspiring to get into product management or are in the early stages of the product management journey. They come and ask, this is a very common question: how can I plan my journey, right? How can I work on my competencies? And so our answer always is that it has to be T-shaped. T-shaped would mean that on the upper side, where you have the core product management competencies described under strategic product management, technical and product marketing front, these what we kind of call as transferable competencies, which would mean that if you are able to play a strategic product manager role on product A, and when you move to the same role of a strategic product management manager role in product B, lot of those learnings, experience you can really transfer as you move from product to product, company to company. And so all these competencies will stay with you. These are life skills in terms of product management discipline. While if you see the depth, ecosystem depth is something which is very specific to the ecosystem which where you are going. For example, you might be in a fintech company, or you might be in health tech world, or you might be in retail tech, agri tech, and so on and so forth. Or you might look at it from the business model perspective. Have you spent a lot of time in B2C, or have you been into B2B, or it's a mix of it, or B2B2C, or local, global, or the product type? Many of the product managers have spent years and decades building just the SaaS products. Some of them have worked on only physical products, right? So things of those nature. So these are, I mean, the learnings you can always take from one ecosystem to another, but you will still. So, for example, if you have only worked in fintech and you are now starting your journey in health tech, it will be required for you to spend some time on the domain, understanding the protocols and other details about that particular industry, so that you can understand what your users and your stakeholders are talking about, right? So that's how I would say, if you are, let's say, if you are in college and you want to spend time on learnings, I would highly advise you to kind of focus on the core competencies like strategic product management, technical product management, and product marketing. And Ativi will talk about some of the sources of good learnings, good reads. Probably you can focus on them. And this is very quickly, I will kind of also talk about a typical journey in industry looks like this. Folks who are interested in product management career path, today they might be in various other kind of roles, whether it is a developer role, or an operations role, or a marketing role, or a project management role, or a pre-sales role, data analysis role, financial analysis role, or the designer role, right? So, and you can begin your journey. In fact, when the product management roles initially started in India, there were no product managers to hire from market, right? So a lot of people from various other streams were actually kind of hired, and kind of they were skilled on product management competencies. And you start your journey as associate product manager or a junior product manager, where you do backlog management, UAT, you do comparative analysis if you are on the SPM side of the house, and you really help the ecosystem in the information and knowledge sharing. And thereon you move to an intermediate level of product manager, where you start building the product roadmap, start looking at the market from the product strategy perspective, start interacting with your customer, start plotting the customer empathy maps, lead the collaboration across the organization, work towards product market fit, and also take the ownership and accountability on the PI or the sprint backlogs. And then you, on the advanced levels, you really start getting into the zone of leadership, where you are leading PMs and products. You own the business outcomes and the roadmaps. You perform the CBAs. You own the charters. You own the relationships with various stakeholders inside the organization as well as outside the organization, and also are responsible for understanding and bringing the learnings from the VOC, voice of customer exercises, in terms of NPS or whatever your organization might be conducting. And really at the top, at executive level, the VP of the product or CPO, the chief product officer, they really start. These are really, the executive roles in terms of really deciding what need to be done, what is the vision, what is the product strategy, right? And as I was saying earlier, what is the strategic alliance, kind of decision, whether built by partner and things of those nature. What is the long range strategic planning, and what are the OKRs, what are the MBOs, how do you define them. All those uh, roles requirement will be there as you move to the executive level. These are uh, and it will require a lot of experience, lot of hard work to really build your career as you move forward. But I think, as we have covered the competencies, the practices, and the general career path, this kind of might be making sense with respect to, okay, if I have to get into this, what does, this career path look like. And I'll just kind of end my narrative, and then I'll hand it over to Atipi. Is that, like, some of the product manager codes, or the leaders, product leaders, have clearly articulated in their own ways, with respect to what it takes to be a really good product manager, right? For example, a great product manager has the brain of an engineer, heart of a designer, and speech of a diplomat. At the end of the day, your job isn't to get the requirement right. Your job is to change the world. And like Steve Jobs once said, right? People think focus means saying yes to thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the hundred other good ideas. How do you say to hundred other good ideas, based on your product strategy, right? Any damn fool can make something complex. It takes a genius to make something simple. How do you go to first order thinking? If you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you have launched too late, which would mean that it is iterative process. It will require hardship. It will go through many phases which before you can really hit the bullseye. The most important thing in the communication is hearing what isn't said. Peter Drucker once said, and this is so important. When you talk to your user, like, it's so important to listen what they're saying and listen what they're not even saying, right? So it's an art, actually. Building a great product is a creative, chaotic process which you won't get every time right every time. So you have to also be learning from success and failure. What Adibi said earlier, right? It will be chaotic, it will have unknowns. So it is by given, and I'll kind of end it with this. Today, if you go to B schools, top B schools, and various other colleges, right? Product management roles are one of the sought after roles in all these colleges. Product manager in literal market also is one of the sought after skills in the literal market. And the reason is not because it's easy. It's big, obviously, right? The reason is because it is, that person has to get into the chaotic and unknown ecosystem and drive and lead the entire product team and product group towards building the right product or a platform which can win the market. So with that, I'll hand it over to Atibi.
Yes, so I know I really want to answer. We should answer some questions, but these are some of the resources that you all can just take screenshots, or just note it down. But definitely, it's a very evolving stream, and there is no course. That there are many courses, right? You can take a course, you get a certification, etc. But you need to keep on constantly understanding how good product companies are actually building their products. What are the failures? What are some So these are some of the websites and blogs. You could just take a screenshot. These are some of the very good books. I personally, I've worked with startups. So, Lean Startup is one of the books that I always, referred to. It was always, next to me. Hooked. I'm reading this. I've almost completed this. I think this is definitely good for a person who's just coming into a product management. But Marty Kagan definitely is someone that you should, you should, follow. You could just take a screenshot. I think we can um, yes, I think these are some blogs. There is a lot of information in all these. Mind the product. You follow this product manager HQ product school. They have multiple webinars that you could join, understand. You will really get to know what's follow these groups even on LinkedIn. They keep having free webinars, etc., that you could be part of. It would That's really the best way of learning or understanding product management principles and learning from what they're doing. Okay, I think we can just move. Yes, some key opinion leaders that you must follow. Dan Olson, he's brilliant. He talks about a product market fit, value proposition, how to build that. Please, you can just follow them on Twitter, LinkedIn. They have YouTube channels. Okay, so on that note, Nitin, maybe we should just go quickly
Yeah,
to the questions.
absolutely. I
Okay.
think, and I think probably we can take questions in categories. There are a bunch of questions out here. I think the first one is, I think if a couple of questions I saw in the on those lines is product management domain specific. Um, so probably what, and let me answer to this one, and then Ativi, you can take the next one. Is um, see, product management as a competency is domain agnostic, and and that's why, like when I was talking about the T-shaped framework, the some of the competencies which were there in the top bar of the T shape, those are transferable skills. So, for example, if you have done strategic product management, if you have done CBA, if you have done backlog management, if you have launched a product in, let's say, fintech, you can also do it in health tech. So that should not be a problem. Lot of it is a transferable skill set, right? Lot of it, and it is in fact, in your career, it will be good if you go and work in different domains, fintech, health tech, retail tech, and whatnot, because it will give you dimensions of different ecosystems. And the reason why I say this is because a particular industry might be a laggard from technology adoption and whatnot, on other parameters, but it most of these industries learn from each other, right? So, for example, retail tech have done wonderfully well on leveraging the supply chain efficiencies. Probably health tech is laggard in that particular sense. So it learns from the other industries, and the way it learns is because through these product experiences, right? So it is important for you folks to kind of go across the industries and do, but the skill set, from skill set perspective, it is completely industry agnostic. Second category of questions, Aditya, I'm seeing is, and I will kind of rephrase to cover multiple questions here, is how much technology background is required to be an effective product manager?
Yeah,
Do you want to take
I'll
that?
take that. Yeah, I think there are a couple of questions on that. Now, I think definitely I would say it depends, right? And what does it really depend on? So, is the product a consumer-facing product, or is it basically an enterprise, a tech product, right? For consumer-facing products, there are many cases where non-technical product managers really excel in the strategic product management domain, right? And to some extent they have an advantage, because in that case you are completely thinking about the consumer. What problem is you're solving, how big is that problem, am I solving it right, am I building the right product for the consumer. So you have that lens, and you don't have a lens of is it technically feasible. So in those situations, definitely an SPM, you may not need a technical background, but definitely if you are building for enterprise, and you're building for your end consumers are technical, right? In that case, it is advantageous to have a technical background, and have someone who understands and speaks the same language as the engineering team. And the reason why that is it is because a technical PM in those areas, if you're building, for the enterprise, there would be nuances, there would be, pieces that you would need to really, build from a technical product manager, and communicate to the end consumer, to the technical team. So there is definitely an advantage. Another place where you don't need to be very technical maybe is where you have a very very strong strategic product management team already. So for example, you have a team that is thinking about the consumer, thinking about what really needs to be done. Then there would be a benefit of having PMs with strong technical skills to just make sure that you're aligning the roadmap, you're developing fast, you're basically just delivering on what needs to be done. So I would say, think if you're technical, you think of the areas that you are getting into. What is the product you're solving? Who's the end consumer of your product? I think that would be, really critical. And but I would say, yeah, at certain, all companies think of it are structured very, very differently across organization. This is, my point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, probably, Atipi, the next question is more about our opinion. So probably both of us can take a shot at it. Is what aspect of product management do we find most exciting? So I'll probably say, if you ask me, see, I've seen, I would put it this way, in at least in my group, in my teams, I've seen the perspective of grass is greener on the other side kind of a syndrome, right? Uh, my SPM team members come and always tell me that next year they want to work in the execution side of the house. They want to build products, and my TPMs come to me and they say, next year I want to really focus on strategy. I want to do market intelligence. And having done both in my life, almost equally, I can tell you one thing, that both are, it's not like one is better than other. Both are equally chaotic and full of unknowns, right? But somewhere, if you really, ask me what excites me, what gives me kick, you know I think whatever is the stage of product life cycle I get into, I get excited the most when the product get launched and it is being used by the products, by the users. So that stage is more closer to technical product management, because they are building and they are in the later stages. So that's where I think I have seen more satisfaction in terms of this. But having said that, it is all it is always possible only because we have done a good job on the strategic side. Atibi, what is your take?
I think I have, worked as an SPM, and I've worked as as in product marketing. So I think, um, I've worked in product marketing with Yahoo, and I think I really enjoyed that a lot, the product marketing piece also, because at that stage is where you are making the right decisions to make sure that the consumers are actually consuming a product, right? The distribution angle, what's really working, what are some of the levers, or that you have to use in terms of digital marketing, what are consumers saying about it, how you feed that back also to the product team. So I've really enjoyed that piece. But yes, I think uh, so yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I think
that's
probably
always
we can take.
fun.
I think we can take one more question. Probably this one. How does a product manager handle product failures? Atibi, do you want to take a shot, and then probably I can pitch in?
Yeah, maybe maybe we can take 2 3 questions. So maybe you can go ahead with this, Nitin. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So see, as Atibi, introduced three lenses of innovation, right? Desirability, viability, feasibility, and product mindset always talks about the iterative model, right? So failure is not an absolute term, in my opinion. I never take it as an absolute term. It's an iterative process, and when you build in iteratively, some things will fail, something will succeed, right? It will always be the case. In fact, it is very hard to find folks who have not faced failures. It is bound to happen that you were thinking it will be a hit and it is not a hit, right? The only answer to that question is what Adibi earlier also mentioned, is one of the competency or practice is being resilient and resourceful. If you are being resilient, you will not be disturbed by the failure. You will come back to the drawing board and try to understand what went wrong, and then also drive your entire team towards improving upon it iteratively again, and then go back to the market. And this is it's an iterative process, but it's very important that you don't take failure as an absolute failure, because if you have put together a solid business case, and if there is a hurdle, if there is a failure, it is bound to happen that there are more opportunities which you have, or aspects of opportunities which you have really not explored fully, which that's what need to be done iteratively. So that's all about it. um Atibi, do you sorry, I'm just kind of looking
Yeah,
at the question.
how does a product manager support business development? Okay. So I think I can take this. So in terms of so what really happens, right? As a product manager, uh, business development is also a stream which is very critical because they are very close to your paying consumers, especially if you look at B2B, right? If you look at B2B, business development is extremely important. I was working with a with a health startup, and the business development would always come back to us saying that this is what is required from this hospital, or sorry, from this provider, or this is what is required from this and this is the in terms of the revenue, etc. I think as a product manager, it is extremely important to support the business development team to understand the key themes or requirements that are coming in the market, which will sell your product, right? And then build to actually scale those your product to those markets. Very often I have made that mistake where I said this is exactly what needs to be built, and we can't really move away. But once the business development team is talking to the consumer, they realize that there are many changes that need to be made at the product level for it to be sellable, right? We go back to the viable model. At that stage, you have to take a conscious call that maybe what you thought was wrong, and or needs to be improvised, and actually really, I would say, even go to those meetings. I have very often visited client meetings, gone with business development teams to really understand some of the key themes that are required. And very often business development will come to you saying that we want XYZ, uh, and then when you probe and ask why, right? Is there any other solution that can solve for the same problem? I already have this existing in the product. Can I change this a little bit, and will that solve the same problem? And then the answer would be yes. So it's a very important. So as a product manager, actually at a conduit with the business team, technical team, and the end consumer. So it's a very supportive function, I would say, for business development.
Wonderful. I think we are top of the hour now. In fact, 3 minutes over. But yeah, it is wonderful opportunity. Thank you, the
Yeah.
Witace platform, for providing us the opportunity, and I think I hope it was helpful for everyone. If there are more questions, please do write in comment section, and I think those will reach out to us, and we'll try to answer them.
Yes.
Atibi, over to you. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you so much. It was lovely interacting with you all, and I really, good luck to this journey. It's something that's definitely is exciting. And do reach out to me, if you want, on LinkedIn. I would be happy to answer any questions. And was great interacting with all of you all. I hope this was helpful.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye.